guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my January wrap-up. I haven't filmed in a minute, so you're going to have to excuse me if this is a little bit awkward. I took a week or so off and yeah, so that's where we're at. But we're back and we're jumping right into it. So the very first book that I read in January was The Ruthless Lady's Guide to Wizardry by C.M. Wagner. I actually read this as an ARC, so I didn't read this physical copy, but I did get this in my January Unplugged book box, so I have one to show you guys. I've talked about it a few times. I think it was featured in both of my reading vlogs this month. But The Ruthless Lady's Guide to Wizardry is about Deli, or Delaria Wells. She is a con artist and a thief. She's down on her luck, she can't pay her rent, and she sees an advertisement for a female bodyguard. She's also a fire witch, so she thinks that she could, you know, contribute to this and earn some money while she does it, so she joins up, and she kind of learns that everything is not what it seems. Yeah, I've talked about it in a few things. I'm not going to go too far in depth on this. Overall, I did enjoy it. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I think that some of the things were just not executed the way that I wanted it to. It was funny, for sure. I thought that the writing style was absolutely hilarious, and I think that if C.M. Wagner puts out anything else, I'm definitely going to pick it up. But yeah, Ruthless Lady's Guide to Wizardry, I gave it 3 stars. The next book that I read this month was Saga Volume 2. I also talked about this in one of my reading vlogs, so I'm not going to go too in-depth. Saga is a graphic novel series by Brian K. Vaughan, and it follows these 2 people who are members of kind of warring alien species. They've been fighting with each other for, I don't know, many years at this point. I don't know exactly how long it's been. But these 2 fell in love, and it's kind of a Romeo and Juliet situation, and they now have a baby, and they're just trying to do anything that they can to protect her because their love and marriage is very much so forbidden. So this is the 2nd volume. Once again, I really liked it. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. The art style, the humor, like all of it just sits really well with me. And once again, it kind of left off on not a cliffhanger, but like a plot twist at the end that leaves you wanting more. Fortunately, I have Volume 3, so I will move on to that as soon as I can. But yep, that's Saga Volume 2, and I, once again, really enjoyed it. The next few books I don't have physical copies of, so I'll put a picture over here so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. But the next book that I read was Lair of Dreams by Libba Bray. This is the 2nd book in the Diviners series. So I listened to this audibly, and while I absolutely love January Lavoie? I think it's January Lavoie. While I absolutely love January Lavoie as an audiobook narrator, and she for sure improves the entire experience of it, I just don't think that I liked the storyline of Lair of Dreams nearly as much as I liked the Diviners. I'm not going to go too much into detail because of spoilers. It is the 2nd book in the series, but Lair of Dreams kind of focuses more on Henry and a new character, Ling, and how they are navigating like the dreamscape world after the events of the Diviners. I really liked a lot of the characters more. I liked a lot of the characters less also in the 2nd book, but I don't know. There were parts of it that just irritated me way more than they had in the 1st book, and I think that really impacted my enjoyment. A couple of the background mysteries, they definitely progress, so you get to find out more. I ended up giving this, surprisingly, in my opinion, a 4 out of 5 stars. I kind of expected it to come out at a 3, but when I put it through the spreadsheet, it came out at a 4, so we're going with it. But yeah, it was good, but it wasn't anything that hooked me in any way. I would listen to it for a while when I eventually picked it up. I just could never bring myself to actually pick it up, and I think it's like a 20-hour audiobook, so it was time consuming. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it. I'm definitely going to continue on with the Diviners series. I just think that I'm going to lower my expectations for them a little bit because I loved the Diviners so much, and I just was expecting to feel that same way about the 2nd book, but it just didn't kind of work out that way. The next book that I read was The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick, and this I received as an ARC from NetGalley. I really loved this book. It took me a while to get through it just because I was like soaking up all of the political intrigue and the world building and the character building that was going on throughout the entire thing. but I ended up giving The Mask of Mirrors a full 5 stars. I adored this book. I adored the world. I adored the people. I don't actually have any clue about anything involving the magic system, but that's okay. It was so good. I can't wait to get my hands on a physical copy of it, and I cannot wait for book 2. I also did not talk at all about what The Mask of Mirrors is about. So The Mask of Mirrors, you follow Ren, and Ren is kind of a con woman as well. She is very, very good at pretending to be different things. So she can kind of fit into any role. And in this particular story, what she is doing is she's trying to take the place of a long-lost relative in a very rich family in the city that she's living in. She's trying to get her hands on that inheritance and get some comfort in her life for her and her sister and just take care of her. And she kind of gets drawn into the family's intrigue. She gets drawn into the world's intrigue. There's a lot of stuff going on into the background that she gets sucked into, and her life is put in danger and all of this other stuff. It was just so much happened that I don't know. I loved it all. It was all so good. There's also a mysterious figure called the Rook, and he's kind of a Robin Hood / Dread Pirate Roberts mix from The Princess Bride. It's great. It's just, I guessed who he was, not going in, but I guessed who he was about halfway through the book, but I'm not disappointed in it. I'm really okay with it. Yeah, this book, it was so great. I highly, highly, highly recommend that you go and pick it up because everything about it, I just absolutely fell in love with. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. After I finished The Mask of Mirrors, I picked up A Question of Navigation, which is a sci-fi short story by Kevin Hearn, who I've mentioned many times on my channel. He's one of my all-time favorite authors, and this was his first foray into sci-fi. So in A Question of Navigation, you follow, what was his name? It's not Gary. Clint. His name is Clint. You follow Clint, and Clint has been abducted by aliens after watching his friend, I think it was his friend, while they were hiking, be horrifically murdered right next to him and eaten. I think he was also eaten. So he's been abducted by aliens, and he is now on their ship, and he finds out that they've also abducted a bunch of other scientists with the intention to target Earth in the long run, like send the location of Earth back to their home planet and pretty much take it over. I'm not going to go too much more into that because it is a short story, so giving away more of the plot is essentially giving away all of the plot. But it was great. It was full of Kevin Hearn's usual humor. It was so funny. I laughed out loud so many times. And I really enjoyed it. It was a quick, fun read, and it was nice to see him do something a little bit different from what he usually writes. So I really liked it. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. Like I said, I loved it. I needed more from it. I don't think that I'm a Kevin Hearn short story kind of person in a place where he's like not already established a world. Like, I prefer my short stories to be characters and worlds that I'm already in love with and I'm going to get more from versus something brand new, because I'm going to be left wanting so much more than I'm getting. And I talked about that in the vlog in which I read this, so I will link that up above. But yeah, I liked it. I gave it 4 stars, and I highly recommend you guys go read it. Next up, I picked up Slay by Brittany Morris, and I read most of this audibly. I think I only read like the last 100 pages or so in the actual physical book, and I blew through this in pretty much in a day. I think that I read the last 100 pages on the second day, but yeah, I flew through this book and it was so good. Slay follows Kira Johnson, and Kira is a brilliant girl in high school who has created a virtual reality video game for the Black community. It's a place where they can game and they can feel safe in there, knowing that everybody else in their community is going to accept them, and it is all based around Black culture and Black history, and it's really cool. I talk about this in one of my vlogs as well, so I will link that up above again, but all of this kind of is threatened when someday somebody in the real world has been murdered because of this video game, and all of a sudden it blows up in the news, and Kira, not her specifically, but her online persona, kind of comes under fire for creating this video game. You kind of explore all of the issues that come with that, and she kind of has to deal with this as a very young girl with nobody to turn to because she has kept this entire thing under wraps from all of her family and friends. And so you kind of follow her as she deals with the fallout of all of that. It was so good. The video game concept was so cool. I loved everything about this, and I blew through it so quickly, so obviously I couldn't put it down. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars, and I definitely think you guys should pick it up because it's such a quick, I don't know that fun is the right word. Parts of it for sure were fun. The ending was fun. I guess fun is okay. It was a quick, fun, really, really good read. Next up, I picked up The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and this is a young adult kind of thriller mystery deal following Avery. Avery is a down on her luck high school student. She's just trying to live. Both of her parents have, well, no, one of her parents has passed away, the other one's kind of a deadbeat, and she's living with her older half-sister who has taken over responsibility for her care until she turns 18. They're very, very close, but they have no money. Avery pretty much is like hustling students in the parking lot for money to pay for bills and things like that. She's very, very smart. And one day she finds out that upon being called to the principal's office, a very, very rich man, a billionaire, has died and has left her something in his will, and she has to go to the reading. So she goes to the reading and she finds out that the entirety of his estate is actually being willed to her. Obviously this causes a lot of tension with his entire family that barely got anything, and they spend the entire time trying to figure out what her connection is with this man and why he would leave her all of his money. He's left a bunch of clues, and she and a bunch of his grandsons, there's 4 of them, and they all follow these clues to figure out what is going on, why he left her all of the money, and all of that stuff. It was okay. I definitely wouldn't call it my favorite book of the year. I mean, it's only January, so that's a pretty low bar so far. I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. It was quick. I blew through it practically in one night just because I wanted to find out where all of the clues were leading, but I was so deeply disappointed by the ending. I loved everything leading up to it, except for some of the relationships. They were kind of less than believable to me, but it's fine. We build up to the ending the entire time, and then when you get there, it felt so disappointing to me. It kind of felt like a cop-out, in all honesty. I'm not going to talk about it because it is obviously spoilery, but yeah, I was not a fan of the ending. I did put it through my spreadsheet and it surprisingly came out at a 4-star, but I think it's a pretty low 4-star, so we'll see. I don't know if I'm going to move on in the series or not, but there are a couple of questions left that I would like answered, and I believe book 2 comes out later on this year, so we'll see if I pick that up. But yeah, I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars and was just super disappointed by the ending of that book. That's all I really have to say about it. The next book I picked up was Witchy by Ariel Slamet-Rees. I have no idea how to say the main character's name. Nynaeve. I'll put it right here just to show you guys. I have no idea how to say it. But it follows her in a world where witches' powers are determined by how long their hair is. So the longer your hair is, the more powerful of a witch you are. At some point, you become too powerful and the government does not trust you to use your powers for their own good, I guess, and hunt you down in what is called a witch burning. That's kind of where this entire thing pops off, and you follow Nynaeve as she starts off trying to hide how long her hair actually is because it is one of the longest heads of hair in the entire realm, I guess, kingdom, I don't know. And she's trying to hide it from everybody because she doesn't want to be judged for it and she doesn't want to be in danger because of it. And events happen and it kind of comes to the forefront that she is not being entirely truthful about her ability with magic, and she ends up going on the run. I am not going to talk too much more about that, but this was a really quick, really fun graphic novel. I ended up giving it 5 out of 5 stars, even though the art style really did not click with me at all. I was not a fan of the art style. I just felt like parts of it were not clear. It didn't really click with me. The events of the things that were happening, particularly in some action scenes, I had to like go back and analyze every single piece of it to try and figure out what had just gone on. But the story itself was really, really good, and I can't wait to read the next volume of this to find out what is going to happen next. Okay, we're coming down to the last 2 in this really, really long wrap-up video, but the second to last book that I finished in January was Wildcard by Marie Lu. This is the second part of the duology in Warcross, also by Marie Lu, obviously, and you continue following Emika Chen after the events of Warcross. I don't think I can talk about the events of this book because it's going to spoil pretty much everything about the ending of Warcross. So in Warcross, Emika Chen is a bounty hunter. She's got no money. She's just trying to struggle to make it from day to day, and one day, in an attempt to make money, somewhat illegally, she hacks into a very large, world-renowned VR game contest called Warcross. She hacks in an attempt to gain a super rare power-up that she can then sell on the black market, and she kind of glitches herself into the game and then comes to the attention of the creator of this game, and he ends up hiring her to try and help him track down somebody who's trying to ruin his game and blah 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 blah. So yeah, this was the second book, and I definitely liked the first one better for many different reasons that I can't really talk about. I listened to the audiobook of this and then I switched over to reading it physically towards the end, and while I'm pretty satisfied with the way that it ended, the turn that Wildcard took halfway through was super surprising to me, and I still don't know how I feel about it. I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars, and overall I do really enjoy the duology. I think that it's a lot of fun, and it kind of just is what it is. So overall I enjoyed it, but some of the turns in here took me by surprise, and I don't know how I feel about them. Okay, so the very last book that I finished in January was Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. I picked this up totally on a whim and really enjoyed it. I ended up getting the ebook from my library, and then I saw this at a Half Price Books when I stopped there last weekend, and since I was already in the middle of it and I knew I was going to want a physical copy, I just finished it physically instead, and I have zero regrets. I knew that I liked the Expanse series, which is on Amazon Prime, and that did not disappoint for the book either. In fact, the book enhanced my enjoyment of the TV show, which I watched the entire first season and half of the second season pretty much while I was reading along with this. So essentially, you follow two main characters in Leviathan Wakes. You follow Jim Holden, who is the XO of like an ice hauler ship, and they receive a distress beacon from something like a ship that has been abandoned in space, obviously, and they go to investigate it. And while he and a small crew have gone to investigate it, the larger ship stayed behind and pretty much just got blown up while they were away from it, and he then needs to find out who blew up his ship, the Canterbury, and why, while they are trying to survive because they're also kind of being hunted down for being a part of that ship in the first place. You're also following Detective Miller, and Detective Miller is trying to investigate. At first it turns kind of into a missing persons. A very rich person in the Earth government, lunar government, I'm not sure, wants him to find their daughter. They can't seem to find her, and then it kind of like they want him to kidnap her and bring her back, but then it turns into a missing persons when he cannot find her anywhere, and he kind of gets sucked into a larger conspiracy theory, at which point he and Jim Holden kind of meet up. That wasn't a very good explanation of this entire thing, but there's so many things going on throughout the entire story, it's really hard to just sum it up in a couple of sentences. Watch The Expanse. Read Leviathan Wakes. I literally cannot talk about these enough. I'm obsessed. 100% obsessed. I had to stop watching the TV show so that I wouldn't spoil anything because I haven't read the second book yet, but as soon as I do, I will continue watching the show. I can't wait to move on in this series. So the last book I'm going to talk about is more of an honorable mention just because I'm only about a third of the way through it so far. I just started Of Wicked Blood, which is an arc that I received from NetGalley by Olivia Wildenstein and Katie Hayes. It is following Slate, who is kind of a thief and a con man, which apparently is a really big theme in the books that I've read in January, and I don't know why, but whatever. And he finds out that he is actually a descendant from a very important family in a town called Broome in France. So he has been offered a free admittance to a college there, and because of his family name, and it is there that he meets Cadence, and Cadence is another descendant of another powerful family there. I don't really know how far I can go into this summary because I haven't read very much of it yet. Essentially, he steals a ring that kind of seals itself onto his finger and curses him until he and 3 other people can complete their individual quests, at which point magic will return to this town in France, and I guess everything will be happy again and he won't die. I don't know. That's all I get out of it so far. I'm gonna not talk too much more about it because I don't really know what else to say. I am having some very strongly mixed feelings about it though. Slate as a main character is a douchebag. There's really no other way to say that. He spends way too much time over sexualizing Cadence and then like in return getting mad when other male characters over sexualize Cadence. It's a very hypocritical situation. I don't love it. The writing style seems a little bit youthful for me, and I know that it's a YA fantasy, kind of contemporary urban fantasy, so I don't know that, you know, it's not supposed to be that way, but it's just reading very youthful for me, while at the same time trying to display characters that are not youthful. I mean, they're older high school, younger college age. So I don't know. We're gonna finish it. I'll talk about it in my wrap-up probably for February because I have a couple of days left in January. I think I'm going to finish it today or tomorrow, but I wanted to film this today. So yeah, that is Of Wicked Blood. I will talk to you guys more about it after I have finished it, but I'm giving it an honorable mention in my January wrap-up just to let you know that I'm in the middle of it. And the other last thing that I wanted to do in this video that is getting to be too long already is talk about my TBR for this month. So at the beginning of this month, I went through my TBR jar, picked 5 prompts, and I am happy to say that all of the books that I read did complete those prompts. Okay, so for an author with the same initial as me, I picked, like I said, Wild Card by Marie Lu, and we can check off that one. POC main character, I read Slay, we can check off that one. Smallest book on my TBR, or anything less than 100 pages. This didn't quite work out, but it is one of the smallest books that I had on my TBR, so that was Saga Volume 2, which was just over 100 pages. I think A Question of Navigation would work for this well. It was like 140 or something. I don't really read novellas. I don't really read anything less than 100 pages, so that's going to work. 3 books that I read this month actually had LGBTQIA rep, and those are Ruthless Lady's Guide to Wizardry, which had a sapphic romance, and Wild Card did have a gay romance, and Witchy has a trans character, so check off that one. And then finally, a book with a dark cover. I picked Inheritance Games. I had originally picked a Lisa Jackson book in my TBR video and switched that out with the Inheritance Games, which is dark green, and so it counts. So there you go. I ended up finishing all 5 prompts for my very first successful January TBR. I will have a February TBR video coming up soon. Probably I will be filming it right after this, so that will be coming to you guys later on this week. But that is it for me today, so I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye!